Mobile Suit Gundam. It's a series I'm quite passionate about, which, I mean, you should pick up on by this point. I do kind of mention it in like almost every other video, but it's something I'm quite fond of. I can recount the first time I witnessed it as a child, sneaking out of bed and turning on the TV at the lowest setting to be greeted by the face of the Wing Gundam. One of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. To this day, I will stand by that statement. It's a series that has been around for a very long time. As of next year, its 40th anniversary. And that's pretty relevant because Bandai likes to do a lot of anniversary stuff with Gundam. Usually just overpricing recolors of model kits they've already released through their premium network that you have to spend stupid amounts of money to have. But my frustration with premium Bandai aside, they also like to do something else other than that. They still do that a lot, but they also like to create anniversary sort of celebration animated pieces. A great example of this, which you can look up on YouTube right now, is Gundam Perfect Mission. Just like a 1 minute long short of just celebrating all the lead Gundams up to that point. It's fantastic. A terrible example of this is Superior Defender Gundam Force. Bringing SD Gundams to the West is often deemed to be one of the worst things Gundam has ever done. Hell, it's been considered by some to be the worst anime-related thing ever done. And that is in a world where G-Savior exists. And on that subject, as a Canadian, I do feel I need to apologize for G-Savior on behalf of my entire country, so I'm sorry. I don't know why that exists, and I'm just sorry. But the point is, Superior Defender Gundam Force was a really awkwardly animated series that tried to bring SD Gundams to the West, and I think it failed pretty hard. But it still managed to get 2 games released, one on the Game Boy Advance, and this one on the PlayStation 2. And honestly, unless you're a fan of SD Gundam Force, I can't really recommend it. Superior Defender Gundam Force followed around an annoying kid and 3 Gundams that existed across the SD Gundam franchise up until that point. You had Captain Gundam, a mix between the Gundam GP01 Zephyranthus and the similarly named but completely unrelated Captain Gundam from a futuristic SD Gundam timeline. You had Zero, which was based quizzically enough on the Wing Gundam and not the Wing Zero, as well as quite possibly the most famous SD Gundam of all, the Night Gundam, as seen here. That was really fun to put together, by the way. And Baku Netsumaru, who is based on the Shining Gundam, along with the long-standing SD Gundam trope of Musha. These 3 Gundams and their awe-inspiring child friend of boringness must defeat the evils of Dark Axis, which were basically just humanized versions of the Zeon robots. This game, however, actually follows a completely unique story, which is actually pretty cool. It follows a giant Halo registered trademark, creating a clone dimension of the world they're existing in, and they have to go and stop it. And along the way, mostly fight stuff that I believe is based on Victory Gundam. I'm a little shaky on my Victory Gundam. As well as the standard Zako, and, well, that's basically it. And I hope that's enough story for you, because that's pretty much where it goes. The game itself is a very rudimentary, randomized dungeon crawler, and I mean that in the most genuine sense, because each individual chunk of a dungeon is like 3, maybe 4 rooms big, and the idea is you go from room to room, killing all the enemies until the exit appears. You move on to the next chunk, and after about 3 chunks, you're ejected back to the main world, where you get to do it all over again. Hooray! But before any of that, the first thing you're going to notice is, oh god, the camera! Yeah, this game likes to take like a sort of director's choice sort of camera, in that it's got 2 or 3 camera placements in the world, and as soon as you move out of view of one, it swaps to another. It's just ridiculously disorienting. Like, most of these rooms could just fit on one screen, but for whatever baffling reason, they just don't. Now, the nice thing is this game does supply you with a targeting system. Using the L1, R1 buttons, you can swap targets, which means that even if you're off screen from your opponents, you kind of have an idea as to where they are. And this actually comes back to an important thing about how you've got 3 different characters to play as, because one of these characters really relies on this. So your 3 characters, you've got Captain Gundam, the character that relies the most on targeting, because he's equipped with a gun, which should tell you right off the bat he's probably the best character, and that's safe to assume because he is. He can take opponents out at range without any real risk of getting close to them, and, well, I mean, the first boss I ran into with him, I could literally just stand in one spot and shoot him to death without ever worrying about getting hit. Yeah, the bosses are kind of a joke in this game, by the way. You've got Zero, who is a melee fighter, but has the ability to create area of effect sort of magic around him to give him temporary shielding as well as damage enemies that surround him. And given that most rooms tend to have 2 or 3 enemies at a time, being a melee fighter means you're probably going to get surrounded a lot, so that ability is actually pretty good. And then you have Bakunetsumaru, who is a character who is not even made for this game. He's a melee fighter who's designed to take one-on-one opponents. I'm just gonna point at my previous statement about how you tend to get surrounded seeing as there's 2 or 3 at a time, unless you're playing Captain Gundam, in which case you're on the other side of the room killing everything. Yeah, this game is not exactly balanced for the other characters. Basically, you pick Captain Gundam and you will have no problems in this game. Oh, you can also play as a Zako, as pointed out by the back of the case of this game, because apparently that was something that needed to be broadcast. You can play as a character whose name literally means grunt. Hooray! Anyway, each character can also transform into one of 5 forms. One form exclusively between each of the characters is also only available through a code that was only available on a card available only in Japan. So I'm glad the internet exists, I guess, but you'll notice I'm not playing as any of those special forms because I could not be bothered to play this game longer than I absolutely needed to. Mainly because you have to get higher ranks in each level, which requires you to grind enemies before you run out of time and leave, which happened once or twice when I actually tried to do that. And when you build up a high enough level and get better emblems signifying you killing more things in each level, then you get new forms. But again, Captain Gundam has a gun. That is literally the beat the game button, and you get it from the jump. While you certainly could try and get these other forms, there's not really any benefit to doing so other than maybe just curiosity to see how they play. Now, we've covered that the main game is a very, very simplistic randomized dungeon sort of exploration action game. But how's the combat? Well, you can be Captain Gundam sitting in a corner and killing everything, but regardless of who you pick as your character, the entirety of gameplay is down to mashing the X button. Because if you button mash the X button, you're constantly going to be attacking, and it's very rare that you'll ever be attacked by an opponent. Unless you pick Bakunetsumaru, in which case, he's going to get killed a bunch, because he just sucks compared to the rest of the characters. I mean, Zero's no prize, but, you know, at least Zero has AoE attacks. But largely, it's just mash the button and pick up the experience the enemies drop. Now, occasionally, if an enemy happens to pick up an experience orb that was dropped, they'll level up themselves. Then they get a little bit trickier because they actually learn some self-preservation tactics, such as, you know, attacking. But before that, they're just literally mindless grunts that just wander around. There are a few weird things about leveling the enemies, though, because enemies tend to level up as your character levels up as well to give you something of a consistent challenge, at least as far as I was able to tell. But at the same time, randomly, enemies will just show up that have a higher level than everyone else. And sometimes it's in the middle of fighting other enemies. Other times it's just, you cleared out all the other enemies. Oh, well, bam, here's one more. Oh, and he's a little tougher. Whatever. Basically, gameplay is very, very one-note. It's not terribly interesting. There is a special ability every character gets with the use of the triangle button. However, each of these special attacks requires something of a charge up before you can use it, and every time I tried to, I tended to get knocked back and get knocked out of actually using my special attack. So really, you just need to stand back and button mash the X button. Gameplay-wise, this game is about as bland and one note as you could possibly get. But if you like very simplistic action and you like dungeon crawling, there's something here for you. It's very, very basic, and you might be kind of insulted at the amount of challenge it gives you, but it gives you something. And if you want to get someone into the sort of randomized dungeon crawling genre, this could work as a good entry point because it's not really all that hard, and it's just kind of goofy. The overall presentation to this game is, well, actually, it's basically what the show was. We are talking pre-MS Igloo CGI, which is pretty awkward, although at least it's trying to be, like, stylized, so it fares a little bit better than MS Igloo. But that said, Gundam should never use CGI to begin with. But if you liked how it looked, well, you're gonna find a lot to like in this game because it looks the exact same. The audio design is, well, again, like the visuals, if you like the show, you'll like this. The music is pretty much completely nondescript, and sadly that's probably one of the high points of this game. The voice acting is completely 100%, near as I can tell, the exact same voice actors from the show, including the infamous Yellow Lollycup, genetic clone to Yuri Lowenthal, who secretly plans to replace him and get the credit he so rightly deserves. I'm onto you, Lollycup. Watch yourself. But if you like the voice acting to the show, you'll probably like it here because, well, it's entirely voice acted, which that fact in and of itself is actually pretty impressive, but I kind of found the voice acting to the actual show kind of incompetent, which is probably why Lowenthal sent his clone to do it instead. Leaving the presentation to basically be, if you like the show, you'll like this. Now, if you want to get a copy of SD Gundam Force Showdown, to use its full proper name, on the PS2, it'll cost you maybe $10. Now, the nice thing for me is I didn't spend a penny on this. This was a birthday gift from my uncle, who decided to get me some Gundam stuff for my birthday, which was great, because it meant I got to discover that this game even existed. Seriously, I thought I knew about every PS2 Gundam game in existence. I never even heard of this one, but it exists. That much I can say for sure. But is it worth that $10? Well, if you want a very basic dungeon crawling action game, then it might be, but it's going to be very repetitive, it's going to be very one note, and it's not going to be terribly well executed, challenging, or interesting. That said, if you were a particular fan of this show, well, you had this and the Game Boy Advance game, so at least you've got some choices. But do I particularly like this game? Not really. I think it's marginally better than its license would lead you to believe, but whether or not it's a strictly good game, well, I wasn't a fan of the show to begin with, so I'm just gonna say no, but I'm definitely not the target audience for this game. That said, having played the SD Gundam Generations games, the SD Night Gundam Monogatari games, I could definitely like some SD Gundams. I mean, heck, I went and built a few of them. But this game alone, well, it's not really my cup of tea. Oh god. I'm gonna have to talk about the G-Savior game at some point, aren't I? Ugh.